Today's video is a first. Instead of an apocalyptic scenario coming to our world, or you being transported into a doomsday event, or just coexisting in a dangerous reality, what if there was simply a competition with high stakes that you willingly became a part of? How would you fare? Well, that's what we are seeking to answer today, and pretty much telling you that you aren't beating this one, as you only have a 1 in over 450 chance of making it out alive a rich person. Today, we discuss the "it's just a game, bro, why take it so seriously?" the prequel to Train to Busan with Sakwoo's former career, Equal Rights and Equal Lefts, Kids Bop, the Hunger Games edition.
These are the songs kids are singing.
Jigsaw Battle Royale.
I know you. I want to play a game.
The Most Dangerous Game meets Fall Guys. Survivor, Literal Edition. Why this look like a Joji music video? If you're a native Texan, the state fair is going to be very interesting this year. Slide to the left. PlayStation is really getting pushy with their marketing. What it's like trying to find a job.
우린 이미 노인이랑 여자가 있으니까 나머지는 남자들로 뽑아야 돼.
How did this game never get exposed to the public? A stark contrast of an optimist and a realist, and the most brutal way to describe the harshness of reality series itself. Today, we are telling you why you wouldn't survive the Squid Games. Keep in mind there will be spoilers going forward, so don't get mad if a big plot twist is discussed and you won't get to experience that OMG moment for yourself, as we are starting off strong with the spoilers. Originating from the mind of Il Nam, a multi-billionaire who obtained his wealth through frivolously lending out money to multitudes of people with devilish interest, Il Nam became incredibly bored with life and decided to create a discreet event to entertain himself and others of the rich upper class. Beginning in 1988 in a remote and undisclosed location, hundreds of people are rendered unconscious, stripped of their belongings, and brought to a far-off island in order to compete against each other in a series of games designed after popular children's games in order to win a very large sum of money. However, you aren't here for us to discuss a bunch of adults playing Foursquare or doing TikTok challenges to pay for a year's rent in Los Angeles, as these games have the added challenge that anyone that loses each game or doesn't follow its designated clauses will swiftly be killed. This game being a large source of entertainment for wealthy elites seeking thrills and excitement by wagering large sums of money on who they think would win out of each contestant, much like common folk would bet on horse racing or if Jake Paul's gonna win that next fight.
Put a lot of money on that dickhead to win.
How much did you bet?
$1 million bucks?
Oh.
Now, why would anyone in their right mind enter an over 450-man competition where only one person would come out alive with some cash? Well, Il Nam and his associates seek out those who are down on their luck and extremely in debt to loan sharks and banks, and anybody else that's down on their luck or just broke as hell. Il Nam originally had hoped this would give the poor and downtrodden an even playing field against the extreme inequalities of the real world. By knowing their full histories, Il Nam and his associates bait people with the taste of success and wealth by winning simple children's games, bringing up their past failures, mistakes, and how money could fix so many of their problems, and promising them a chance at a larger fortune and a better life.
돌아가서 남은 인생을 빚쟁이들에게 쫓기며 쓰레기처럼 사시겠습니까? 아니면 저희가 드리는 마지막 기회를 잡으시겠습니까?
그 사람들 말이 다 맞더라고. 여기가 더 지옥이야.
He wanted nothing more than equality amongst the chaos.
이 세계에서 여러분 모두는 평등한 존재이며 어떠한 차별도 없이 동등한 기회를 부여받아야 합니다.
Think of it like Jigsaw when he tells people to
play a game.
Except this time, instead of a broken man with a terminal illness wanting people to answer for their sins to seek atonement by forcing them into a sadistic game,
those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
You now have a bored but tired rich dude with a terminal illness asking you to play a game through his associates for maybe technically legally sadistic entertainment, with the eager prospect of easy cash, much like your aunt and high school best friend and that pyramid scheme they keep trying to get you to sign up for.
It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not even a scheme per se.
I have to go make a call.
Some people voluntarily sign their life away. Now, you have every chance to back out before the games begin, as you are provided a player consent form that simply reads off 3 clauses. 1. A player is not allowed to stop playing. 2. A player who refuses to play will be eliminated. And 3. Each game may be terminated if the majority votes and agrees to. So, read before you sign it, and I mean read, as a lot of insinuation can happen with the contract in between the lines. If you didn't, well, you're maybe technically legally obligated now. Sorry.
그들은 게임의 규칙을 어겨서 탈락했을 뿐입니다. 게임의 규칙만 잘 지키면 약속된 상금과 함께 무사히 이곳을 나가실 수 있습니다.
You might want to check those terms and conditions on your next Apple software update.
You're telling me that every time you guys download an update for iTunes, you read the entire terms and conditions?
Of course.
Well, how do you know if you agree to something if you don't read it?
Regardless about the legalities with these rules set forth, all who enter the facility will be under constant surveillance as they all participate in 6 games over 6 days. Anyone not following these orders during or between games will be executed by PlayStation button-faced guards armed with MP5s. There is no backing out of a game. No amount of begging will get you out, unless you can get the majority of remaining players to vote with you to cancel the games. But of course, that comes down to people having the same outlook as you, as well as those very people you are competing against voting with you. Now, once all these people see how much money they could make despite the chance of dying, well, some would rather die than live another day in debt, being chased by collectors, or allowing their family and friends to suffer around them. And even if the vote for your involved game were successful, a lot of us will return to mundane or trouble-ridden lives and would be reminded of the money that we could have won and how it would solve a lot of our unpaid debts.
힘들어가. 혼자 고마하고 싶다. 고마하지?
내 돈 가져올게! 내 돈 가져오면 될 거 아니야?
Some people might go to the police who wouldn't believe their stories, considering there is really no evidence with your phone being confiscated before arriving on the island with no evidence. Greed, but more importantly, desperation, will prey upon those that need it most. For a lot of people that leave the island knowing the dangers that lurk ahead, a lot will return just so they can risk it all for a better life. Now, in the beginning few days of the Squid Games, trusting others and forming teams and or alliances will be your best bet to persevere. But if you are lucky enough to blast through these challenges together, well, trusting others in a game that not only promises wealth, but your own survival, well, that trust isn't going to get you too far. Most people are going to be looking out for themselves in survival mode, so expecting some people to be there for you at all times will be a fool's errand. As the games progress, there will be those that got you further and those that tried to hinder or sabotage you. If that didn't get you killed, depending on how rational or emotional you are, will have you focusing your efforts on getting back at another person more so than your own survival. But if you decide to, cause some violence between games or after hours, that's a different story. In between games, any amount of things can happen to you as well. Attempting to take a guard hostage so you can try to get out alive will do you no good, as they are perfectly willing to kill each other for the sake of the game and their identities. The guards will not hesitate to shoot one another if the chance arises. Attempting to sneak out or coerce with security staff to break the rules will result in your execution and for your body to be displayed as a warning. Crossing another contestant that might have violent tendencies could have you beaten to a bloody pulp with no interference from the armed guards. Remember, they don't care if there's any violence in between games. You could be killed by any of the contestants and no one could bat an eye, which also leads to your sleeping situation, as you must slumber in this huge, sterile, and massive bunk bed situation, leading you to either being so uncomfortable or restless that sleep will not be an option, as you are forced to stay awake for fear of someone coming to slit your throat in your sleep. On top of all this, minimal nourishment will be provided intentionally, with only enough bread and water for each remaining contestant. Say if another contestant were to take more than their allotted food, others could go without eating or drinking to intentionally cause quarreling amongst the masses that are there in order to start violence in between rounds. People maiming and killing each other in flickering darkness between rounds is fair game and discreetly encouraged in order to thin the herd. Because of a lack of food, water, and sleep on top of paranoia and exhaustion from possibly fighting to stay alive each night could lead you to being murdered, to murdering someone else, or even suicide. And with all these factored, it's easy to see how you could be underperforming in further games, costing you your life as the numbers dwindle. To win, you will have to become cold, calculative, and deceitful, but also offer yourself to others who would prove valuable to your survivability in the first few games. You'll be forced to live on limited rations and stressful living arrangements while knowing the next day could potentially be your last, either via a sadistic game or a desperate fellow contestant. So with all the formalities on the nature of man, survival, and whatnot, what about the games themselves and how you wouldn't, well, survive them? Well, if the 33rd annual Squid Game were to be of reference, we have 6 different games we could place ourselves in to see how we would fare. The first game that you are going to be a part of, the Terms of Death, are not fully disclosed to you and everyone else there, and this will weed a lot of us out. The simple game of red light, green light, where you must reach a designated giant creepy ass doll without it detecting your movement. When it says red light, if you are moving in any degree and it picks up any motion, you will be gunned down by a sniper rifle where you stand. For anyone cocky enough or moving too hastily, you'll die before you know what the game's true intentions are. And now with the realization that you are going to be killed in these games, many people around that see a man or woman executed before their eyes will instinctively try and run away to avoid harm. This is our fight or flight reflex working in full swing. However, when there's a hidden marksman gunning down people, eliminating the chance of any kind of fight for you, the only real reaction for many rational and irrational people is flight. For those that remain still after the first wave of killing, the simple shock and fear riddling your body will have you jittering and making mistakes, with you wanting to rush your way to the finish line and being unable to stop in time for the killer doll's gaze. We can easily say how we can all beat this, but actions speak louder than words, and having the advent of death thrust upon you over a childish game and slipping up once can have even the most steadfast of individuals either running or slipping up and lying in a pool of their own blood. As we observed in the 33rd annual Squid Games, 255 out of the 456 participants were slaughtered. For the next game, you and everyone else will decide on a shape to line out in front of, between a circle, triangle, star, and umbrella. Each player then is handed a case with a cookie inside of their chosen shape that they must cut out perfectly with a needle, your bare hands, tongue, or a light that you snuck in. But if you chose a very intricate shape, well, good luck cutting out the shape of an umbrella. And you have to do all of this in the span of only 10 minutes. Cracking inside any of these shapes in any form will result in immediate execution. Think of it like Mario Party's Crazy Cutters minigame, but if you don't get a 100,
Oh yeah, one more thing.
Now, being meticulous and precise with cookie cutting and a needle is tough enough. But with a guy armed with an MP5 aimed at you and a dead body nearby, let's say your concentration will be shot. Just like you will be. And the funny thing is, it'll suck for you to come back after voting to leave this death game just to die over a damn cookie. Unless you got grandma levels of precision with a needle, let's just say you're not going to be getting out of here, and that's just how the cookie crumbles, with another 79 people dead, and if you survive through this, getting a bittersweet victory. Of the remaining survivors, you will have to band together a team of 10 people not knowing what challenge lies ahead. Because of this, you will have to assume if it requires strength, intellect, or any number of other talents, forcing you to say no to others as you must think strategically, possibly causing future issues with you and other contestants based on presumed ageism or sexism. From there, 2 teams will be placed on opposing towers to, of course, play Tug of War hundreds of feet high. Failing to outmuscle the other team will lead to your literal downfall. It will come down to your placements for each person along the rope and how each of you disperses your strength at integral times, but if you get unlucky with your assortment or fall for the opposing team's tricks when it comes to how the rope is pulled, you'll become a victim of gravity. For a large majority of us, a lot of us are going to be falling to our deaths, and because of this, and the night massacres we talked about earlier, the numbers in the show had quickly shrunk down to 40. To a smaller scale than before, those remaining players will get to break off into teams of 2, causing similar issues from the last challenge to arise. Meaning, you gotta find a really good partner, or so you would think. If you can't find a partner, away with you! So you're probably going to be picking somebody you're fond of. Each pair will be dispersed into a faux neighborhood and given 2 pouches of 10 marbles in order to play a round of marbles against each other where the one that loses dies, making the choice of who you paired up with an actual detriment, as you probably just handpicked somebody because they're a really strong ally to have. Now you have the smartest guy in the room or the strongest guy in the room going against you, or you picked a dear friend or family member, and now you have to make the choice if you want to end your life or theirs. So those who came in as a couple or with a friend, just guaranteed one of you is not getting out of this game alive. The rules can be anything the duo desires, so each person can change rules whenever they wish to favor themselves. If you're not doing too well, you can make the game however you want, ultimately coming down to whoever has 20 marbles at the end of 30 minutes. So, do you have the willpower to kill whoever you decided to pair up with? Or are you going to be a cold-hearted killer? Either way, if you lose your marbles, you will lose your marbles. Okay, that was a bad pun, but it comes down to the psychological torment of facing off against someone you picked. Do you really have it in you to do that? From there, 17 would remain as potentially you or a loved one lie dead in the dusk of a warm neighborhood sun. Each remaining player will have to choose one mannequin and don their number in order to determine who will play in what order. But not knowing what you're getting into and forcing yourself to go dead first or dead last can have drastic ramifications. Going first means you will be the least experienced, but going last could give you a game that leaves you with no options and no time. The game itself having a live audience, as you must make your way across glass stepping stones. All along the bridge are 2 glass panels on each step, one strong enough to carry human weight and another that will shatter instantly when stepped on, meaning any glass that gets broken will stay that way permanently, leaving those that go last with a huge advantage knowing which side to go on. I hope you didn't have an ego about going first, because you are going to be at the worst disadvantage and most likely gonna die. Skill, endurance, and everything you have learned up until this point mean nothing, as it comes down to luck and slight memorization if early members get far enough, and how far back in the order you are. Now, it's not total comfort for you if you're one of the last to go, as there is only a 16-minute timer ticking away. So if the first in line becomes too nervous or refuses to move forward, everyone behind them will be shorter on time, even if they are going to die. If you take too long to cross all of these glass panes, all of the glass will shatter and you will fall to your death, or you'll just be gunned down by guys with snipers or MP5s. Other contestants can jump to your platform and attempt to throw you off as well to save their own lives, or can refuse to move forward to force others to progress for them. It all comes down to the selfishness of each individual person and if they're willing to sacrifice themselves for people that are behind them, or if they can coerce others to die for them. So, unless you picked a big number, have really good memory, have impeccable luck, can tell breakable glass from tempered glass, can avoid being pushed to your death by other contestants, or can land like a cat multiple stories high and scurry away, you'll go from a fall guy to a flat guy. But there's a little bit more to this challenge, because even if you do survive, all of the remaining glass panes behind you will explode into millions of shards, sending those shards everywhere and potentially impaling you and causing you to slowly die out. Well, you finally made it. You somehow survived 463 other people dying and 5 other challenges. Man, now we're here at the last one of the Squid Game. Of the finalists, a coin flip will be called to determine who is on offense and defense. The attacker will hop on one foot outside the squid drawing on the field, and once inside of it, will attempt to touch the squid's head with their foot to win, while defense attempts to push offense out the squid. Whoever can accomplish their goals wins, unless one should die before the game actually ends. I know, compared to everything else, it's a pretty simple game to end it all on, and all it takes is pushing someone or taking their life away. If you can manage that, you will have finally won it all and reap the millions of dollars or billions of one that follow. But was it worth it with all those lives lost? Seeing the life fade out of some... Are you... Okay, I get it. Fine.
안녕하십니까? 게임에 참가를 원하십니까? 참가를 원하시면 기아의 이름과 생년월일을 말씀해 주세요.
Oh, sorry, it took me a while to finish the recording here, but I do have to say, can you handle seeing the life fade from someone's eyes? Resorting to doing whatever you can to survive, using your intellect and everything else? Will it have been worth it to get all of that money? I know a couple of you are going to be cocky and say, oh, we'll get that money, but you don't know in that situation when it comes to life and death, so you can be cocky in the YouTube comments all you want, but I'm saying here, you're a totally different person when your life is on the line and money is involved. But also, we're not quite done, because before then, for some of you that aren't confident enough that you would survive, some of you might say, well, I failed the challenge, but somehow survived being shot or falling multiple stories. Maybe I can just fake being dead and wait for the guards to dump my body somewhere. Well, that ain't gonna fly, as a majority of dead bodies are placed into coffins, nailed shut, and stuck in furnaces for cremation, even if you are still alive inside, meaning you're gonna burn to death. Or if you're still pretending to be dead and you're handed off to corrupt guards, your body will be cut open to have your organs harvested. And if you're alive during the process of you being cut open, well, you will be beaten to death. Now, say you somehow escape from the island. Maybe you're an intruder trying to find out the secrets of what's going on with all these missing people, or maybe you're a still participating player. Well, you're going to be hunted down extensively so as to not reveal the game's secrets to the world. There is no escape. There is no other option except victory for you to get out of here alive. Well, except a democratic process, but when has that ever worked? At the end of the day, though, the cold hard fact is that only 1 out of hundreds will survive, as is shown by the solitary victors from each year prior. It will come down to stamina, strength, cunning, awareness, resolve, luck, and even compassion to come out on top each and every round. Contestants like Jang Dong-suk would always place himself before anyone else. I know a lot of you are going to do that, which in terms of the survival of the fittest isn't the worst mindset to have. However, he's not the one that survived, and he made a lot of enemies along the way, and that was what ultimately led to his death. However, Sean Gi-hun was able to achieve victory with all of these qualities that I mentioned earlier, and while also unintentionally impressing the mastermind behind all of this with his constant acts of kindness towards an old, feeble man. This is all going down while you're also being watched as if you were livestock competing for survival, like a greyhound chasing a rabbit on the track, or like the very horses you have bet on before, by wealthy elites with no humanity that just want to see you play games that will end up having you killed with no remorse. But hey, if you're one to survive all of these games and achieve a victory royale despite all of the odds, well, to be honest, you aren't gonna have plot armor because you're the main character in this next game story. And honestly, most of us will probably be dead by round 1. And by the end of it, all your life will equate to is a set amount of money, and that's all you'll leave behind in this cruel game that promised equality and success. Hopefully this doesn't get taken down like all the other Korean related videos I've posted in the past. I genuinely loved this series and its concepts were fantastic. That's why it's so popular and that's why I made the video, because I had to get on the bandwagon. But I did genuinely like this. Do you think you could survive the Squid Games? Do you think you could survive the IRS after you survived the Squid Games because you got all these millions of dollars suddenly? Tell me how in the comments, and feel free to correct anything I might have gotten wrong or just suggest that what I should cover next. Coming up, I'll be doing a Why You Wouldn't Survive on Back 4 Blood soon after its release. So be sure you're subscribed, and while you're at it, like this video and maybe even donate on Patreon, YouTube, or Twitch to be one of those wonderful supporters on screen right here. Yeah, I love you guys for all the support, but you don't need to support me that way. You can still like the video. That's all I'm really asking for. Also, thanks to the beautiful British boy Wisefish for editing today's video. Sub to him for fun lore videos, and thanks again to you for watching. Like always, stay happy, stay healthy, don't go signing forms without reading them first, and most importantly, stay wow, baby.